In the quiet valley town of Helena, Montana, nestled beneath the backdrop of the Elkhorn Mountains, the summer of 1983 promised nothing more than crisp air, gentle breezes, and the freedom of childhood exploration. For 4-year-old Nyleen Kay Marshall, June 25th was just another sunny day with family and friends, until it wasn't. The picnic at the remote campground in the Helena National Forest was casual, filled with the echoing laughter of children and the low murmur of parents sharing stories under the shade of tall lodgepole pines. It was a place where time seemed to slow, where the only worry might have been an approaching storm or a scraped knee. That afternoon, Nyleen joined a group of children, some her age, some older, as they wandered along a small trail that followed the edge of a nearby creek. The woods weren't far from the main clearing. They were just within shouting distance. But in this dense wilderness, only a few feet could make the difference between sight and silence. At some point, the group of children returned from the trail. But Nyleen did not. No one remembers a scream. No one recalls hearing her call for help. There was no sound, no disturbance, no indication that something was wrong. She was simply gone. Her mother, Nancy Marshall, remembers the moment she realized her daughter was missing with crystalline clarity. A sharp punch of silence in the chaos of what had been a joyful afternoon. Frantic searching began almost instantly. Her name echoed through the forest, over and over, called by dozens of voices. There was no response. Volunteers arrived in droves. Law enforcement cordoned off the area. Helicopters scanned the thick canopy. Searchers formed grids, combing through brush, riverbanks, and caves. Yet hour after hour passed, and Nyleen remained missing. No clothes, no shoes, no sounds, nothing. One disturbing clue surfaced early on. Another child claimed to have seen Nyleen talking to a man who allegedly emerged from the woods, spoke to her briefly, then disappeared with her into the trees. But no other witnesses could confirm the story. And just like that, the lead went cold. The official theory was that she'd fallen into the creek and had been carried away by the current. But searchers found no sign of her downstream. No torn clothing, no footprints, no drag marks in the muddy banks. Nothing to suggest she'd fallen, struggled, or even been there at all. The more investigators looked, the stranger it became. How does a child disappear, without a trace, in broad daylight, within earshot of adults? Days turned to weeks. Weeks into months. Posters were printed. Roadblocks set. Rumors whispered. But as the seasons changed, one thing remained constant. There was still no trace of Nyleen. And then, something even more disturbing happened. 2 years after Nyleen vanished into the Montana wilderness, the Marshall family was still living with an ache no parent should ever know. Her case had faded from headlines, replaced by newer tragedies. But for Nancy and Kim Marshall, the silence had become its kind of torment. And then, in 1985, something broke that silence. A typed letter arrived at the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children. It was postmarked from Madison, Wisconsin. The author didn't identify themselves, but what the letter contained sent a ripple of unease through everyone who read it. The writer claimed to have taken Nyleen. He said he was raising her, that she was safe, that he loved her. "I have taken her to live with me in a different state," the letter read. "She is happy, healthy, and loved. She is being educated and cared for. I did not hurt her." What followed were chilling details, fragments only someone closely familiar with the case could have known. Mentions of the clothing Nyleen wore the day she vanished. Descriptions of the creek and picnic site. Names of family members. The man wrote that he had homeschooled her. They traveled frequently, never staying in one place too long. He claimed to avoid government systems, no doctors, no schools, no records. She was his and no one would find them. More letters followed. Some were mailed to law enforcement, some to the media, all postmarked from Wisconsin. The tone shifted from confessional to taunting, like a puppeteer dangling hope just out of reach. Even more unsettling were the phone calls. One operator in Wisconsin reported that a man called anonymously, claiming to have kidnapped Nyleen. He asked to speak with law enforcement directly. The call was short, cryptic, and never traced. but it matched the tone and language of the letters. Investigators launched an intense search effort in Madison and the surrounding counties. Tip lines flooded. Every promising lead fizzled into dust. At one point, the FBI released a composite sketch, not of the man but of what Nyleen might look like, now older. It was a desperate attempt to shake loose any memory, any flicker of recognition in public consciousness. But the image yielded nothing. And while the idea that she might still be alive brought some comfort to the family, the ambiguity of it all made healing impossible. Who writes letters like that? Why now? Why reveal anything? Was it real? Or was it the cruel invention of a disturbed mind seeking attention? Despite the eerie specificity in the letters, no physical proof ever surfaced. No photos, no fingerprints, no voice recordings, just words. Cold, sterile, anonymous words that tore open the wound all over again. Years turned to decades, and the forested hills of Montana remained silent, holding tightly to whatever secret had swallowed Nyleen Marshall. Despite national attention, involvement from the FBI, and the haunting letters from a mysterious man in Wisconsin, there would be no arrests, no verified sightings, no trace of the little girl who had been playing near a creek one moment and gone the next. But the story didn't end there. In 1990, investigators received a strange tip from across the globe. A girl matching Nyleen's description had reportedly been found in New Zealand. A tourist swore she looked just like the age-progressed composite released years earlier. Law enforcement moved quickly. The girl was located, but hope was once again extinguished. She wasn't Nyleen. It wouldn't be the last time a false lead surfaced. Throughout the 90s and early 2000s, sightings were occasionally reported. A girl at a California beach. A woman is traveling with an older man in Ohio. All dead ends. The letters had stopped years earlier. The mysterious man never contacted the family again. But the damage he inflicted lingered like smoke. Uncertain, corrosive, and impossible to escape. Then, another blow. In 1995, Nancy Marshall, the mother who had fought tirelessly to keep her daughter's case alive, was found dead. She had been jogging near her new home in Mexico when she was struck and killed by a hit-and-run driver. The timing felt cruel. Her life, marked by relentless grief and unanswered questions, had ended as suddenly and senselessly as her daughter's disappearance. The surviving family members carried on, now without Nancy's voice anchoring the search. Her husband Kim and their other children tried to build a life despite the unbearable void. And still, every so often, someone would remember the little girl with light brown hair and big eyes who vanished near a hiking trail in Montana. As the years passed, Nyleen's case faded from the news cycle, replaced by newer tragedies. But for those who followed her story, the silence still echoes. There's no resolution here, no justice, no truth revealed under the weight of time. Just the image of a child, standing near a creek on a summer afternoon, and the haunting question of what happened after. Sometimes the darkest stories are the ones that leave no blood, no fingerprints, and no explanation. Just a void where a life used to be. If you found this episode compelling, remember to subscribe to Trace of Evil and turn on notifications. We unravel some of the most mysterious, unsettling cases from around the world, stories that don't just chill, but linger. Until next time, stay curious, stay cautious, and don't look away.